Every once in a while, you just get to a point where the mind starts, gets cloudy and it starts messing up. You didn't say messing up, but it starts messing up what you're trying to accomplish at the plate. Sometimes you just got to clean it out.
Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Hitstreak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder. And folks, I'm extremely excited about our guest today. I got a special treat for you in the Hit Lab with me. And fun fact about our guest today, when we first started the podcast, I guess it's been about 4 years ago, we made a list of the people that we needed to have on it. And this dude was on that list from day one. Sadly, it took us 4 years to make it happen, but happily, we've made it through those 4 years, and here we sit today. So let me give this dude a proper introduction, folks. Check it out. He is a former professional baseball player, and he is the current vice president of sales and marketing at Old Hickory Bat Company. Give it up for my man, Travis Copley. TC, how we doing today?
Nick Hyder, thanks for having me. It's been a minute trying to make this work and getting schedules to work out right, but we finally did it.
Well, you're a busy dude, and rightfully so, right? So we got a lot to talk about today, but with all that's going on in baseball, it would be a shame to not just get right into the good stuff with the old torpedo bats.
Torpedo bats, yes.
Yeah, man. All right, so I'm just going to turn it over to you instead of asking a question. I'm just going to turn it over to you. That are like torpedo bats. Give us the good, the bad, and the ugly.
So let's bust a couple myths first. If you're Yankee fans out there, obviously you saw what they did the first weekend of the season. And then all of a sudden it came out that, the Yankees really couldn't hit. They were moving the sweet spot of the bat down because they were all getting jammed. Not quite the case with these bats. This is something the Yankees started a few years ago. We were fortunate enough to be one of the bat companies in on the ground floor with them, kind of going through the science with it and what they were looking to do. The long and short of it is now the teams can collect data, turn that over to us, and we can really custom build a bat for individual players.
Well, first of all, that's cool.
It's very cool.
Right? But it actually makes a lot of sense when you say it that way.
It's one of those things that now that it's finally hit, like we're kind of kicking ourselves that nobody thought of this in the bat world sooner. Now, there have been versions of it, throughout the years, people tinkering around with the barrel size and shape, and it is legal. So let's start there. Like it's perfectly legal with the rules that Major League Baseball has set with their bats. So there's no question there. Everything's good. But just being able to apply the analytical data that's now available to the teams, to the players, and marry that with the manufacturing process of a wood bat has really been fun. It's going to be kind of start and stop throughout the season with it as this stuff comes in. This off season, my personal belief is moving into next year, this off season, you have all these players that come into different bat companies and have their bats built based on their data.
Why wouldn't they, right?
Exactly. And does that mean that everybody's swinging a torpedo bat? No, not necessarily, because guys make contact at different points on the bat. So we're doing one now for a AAA player that he sent me all his information, and it's not going to look anything like a torpedo bat. It's going to look like a traditional bat. We're just going to move that quote unquote sweet spot for him to where he's constantly making contact.
Yeah.
And from a team standpoint, it's probably a whole lot easier to build a bat to a swing than it is to change a swing to a bat.
Wow. All right. So, and by the way, folks, the best things in life are usually a form of a custom version of something else, right? So at the end of the day, like the guys have been wearing custom cleats and custom insoles and custom everything for a long time. They even tweak their home gym to what fits them best, what suited them best, right? So it kind of makes sense as a natural evolution,
right?
But I guess that's what happens when unexperienced press gets a hold of it.
Well, I think it happened so quick. I think that was the big thing. We started last fall, kind of playoff time with some guys, I'll say manipulating barrels to change the swing weight for guys. In the past, and even when you and I were playing, you got late in the season and that grind really hit. You started looking at shorter bats or lighter bats. And what we found out over time is that if you're used to swinging a 34-inch bat and you go to a 33.5-inch bat, you've just given up a half inch of coverage with it. And so a lot of guys didn't want to do that. And then, the lighter in weight you go, the less durable the bat becomes. And, if you want to use, redneck physics, mass times power, mass times speed equals power, you've got to have all these things in play. And so going through this process of the Torpedo bat, we were able to kind of on our own make some manipulations that shifted swing weight without really affecting what the player had in their hand with it. And so that's transformed. We knew it was coming. That opening weekend, Yankees Brewers kind of hammered down the accelerator with it. And it was like, oh, crap, here we go. Like, we got to get these out now and as soon as we can. And we had players reaching out for samples. We had guys just placing orders for them. They had no idea what it was. They just said, if it works for the Yankees, it's going to work for me. Send them.
Well, it's again, it's incredibly fascinating, and it makes sense because like even when I was a player, I had multiple versions, models of bats that you guys made for me, by the way, which is I had the best. But it was the same thing against hard riders that where the ball, hard righties where the ball came in. I had a model that felt better than versus soft lefties, then late in the year I had to go, it was like, I need that 271 dude, that skinny light thing, because I'm struggling.
Yeah. And it's funny. I tell my younger son all the time, I said, when I was playing pro ball, I carried a 33.5 to a 35-inch bat with me to almost every game.
Yes.
And I would switch based on the pitcher. Well, they don't do that anymore, but that 33.5 through 35-inch range still exists. It's now a drill on finding barrels for hitters. And it's like, okay, maybe I was a little ahead of myself, and started a trend in training. Too bad it didn't translate to me well enough in games where I could keep playing this for a long time.
That's right. So it's incredibly fascinating, but it's good to have hear from the expert, get a little light shined on it. Because again, I thought it was, anytime you get press like that around the game of baseball, I think it's great. Right?
Oh, 100%. Baseball desperately needed that.
Oh man. And it's great too, because I feel like baseball's in such a great spot right now with the World Baseball Classics kind of getting some legs, which is fantastic. Like, it's kind of like the way that USA basketball did around the Dream Team type thing. It just became something you wanted to be a part of.
If you're a baseball fan, put the WBC on your bucket list. I've been fortunate enough to go to a couple of the pool games, and they're awesome. Like, the atmosphere around it, it's not like a traditional game. I would probably equate it more to like a coach pitch game with the fans, all the moms going crazy. Now it's, I was in Arizona year before last and got to see Canada and Team USA play. I mean, there's people dressed up in maple syrup costumes walking down the street going, the game was awesome. That's what baseball needs. That's
fantastic. That is fantastic. All right. So, we could probably talk the whole day about torpedo bats, but so you have quite the cool job, right? It's a very cool job now, but you've been with your job has probably changed over the years quite
Slightly,
a bit, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, so let's take them back just briefly, because when I was getting bats from you guys, literally I can remember that it was a garage,
right?
It was a garage. You had just started there because your playing career had just ended.
Yeah, I probably, in fact, made your bats, back then. I started in 2002. That fall, I finished playing that summer. Immediately went to work for the guys at Old Hickory, and not much has changed in that. Like, if you get hired by us, you learn everything. So you start hand sanding bats, you learn how to operate the lathe, you learn how to finish bats, the whole 9 yards with it. And so back then, I think there was 3 of us. So we literally did everything from start to finish with it.
Wow. And those, I was never the franchise player, right? But dude, everybody wanted to use my bats.
Right.
Because I had the old Hicks, man.
Well, and that's kind of how we got our foot in the door and kept it there. Was, we came along at a time, and I was drafted in 98. I started using Old Hickory in 2000. The company officially opened the fall of 99. But at that time, there was only 2 or 3 bat companies. And if you weren't in the big leagues, and really if you weren't an all-star in the big leagues, like, you were just a number to them.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that attracted me early on to Old Hickory was that you were somebody to them. Whether you were a rookie ball guy, a AAA guy, a big league guy, or an independent league player, like, you got treated as the cream of the top. It was, your bat was just as good as the big league guy getting his bat. And you couldn't find that anywhere else. And so we've tried to keep that, over my 20 plus years there, that, we build, it's a relationship business, like just about anything else that's going to be successful.
Yeah.
Is get to know the guys a little bit. And I always tell guys, like, if something's wrong, let us know, because if you don't tell us, then we never know and we can't fix it for you.
Right.
And even today, I'm amazed at how many companies don't do that.
Wow. Well, so again, when you started there, those 3 of you, All right. Now, were there any guys in the big leagues at that time?
David Segui.
David Segui, first one?
First one.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So I was fortunate enough to be the first player to swing them, and I was minor league guy, and then David was the second.
Wow. Well, and now I got to say, like, the quality even back in the early days was there. Like, because again, everybody, all the guys that had bat deals and agents and everything else, they all wanted to swing. Like, they always wanted to use my Old Hickories. And that was kind of one of the things I was remembered for in the clubhouse, which is pretty cool. Oh yeah, I had the best bats. It was kind of neat. So, where's the company at now?
So we do about 40,000 bats a year now.
Holy cow!
We've expanded out of the garage into the first production building, which is now our showroom and some office space. We opened up in 2009. Our main production facility now, and then we added a warehouse in 2018 that we do all of our shipping out of, but it also contains 2 batting cages and then our tech stuff that we can bring guys in and get into the customization of bats.
Wow. So when those big league guys are wanting to customize stuff, obviously they've got tons of analytics that they get, with their team, wherever they're at. But you guys, is that a frequent thing? Does that, do they all come in to do that? Or can you build based off analytics from?
Yeah. The way the analytic world works now is, the teams kind of own the rights to it, right? And so some teams will grant access to it more readily than other teams will.
Okay.
I think the Torpedo bats coming online will help expedite that process. Knock on wood, we haven't had a lot of trouble getting the data that we need in the last month, to build bats for guys.
Okay.
The nice part about it is, when guys come to us in the off season, we're bat manufacturers. We're not swing doctors. We're not, hitting coaches as much as I would love to do that. We're not. Mm-hmm. And so now with this data, I don't have to pretend to be something I'm not.
Yeah.
You bring me the data, we can build a couple bats out for you. Then you can come test them, and then we'll back that up with what we gather with it and say, hey, like here's all your numbers off of this bat, and this bat. You tell us what you like, because the comfort and feel is still going to be the deciding factor for a lot of these guys.
Absolutely. It's funny, man. You're the same hitter when you're hot or cold in the box. It's just how you feel when you're standing in there.
Yeah, and we usually blame the bats for it. So,
That's right.
Yeah, we get to deal with that. That part's not going to change.
All right. So one thing I've always wanted to know, so let's say a big league. I know there's you guys have been huge supporters of Sandlot baseball here in town, which is, thank you for that, by the way.
Absolutely.
And I know that Dad has always been, Old Hickory's always been the official bat of all the Sandlot events for 26, 27 years now, since its conception. And there's a big old banner out there with Mike Trout and Old Hickory bats, right? So which is a big one. So a guy like Mike Trout, how many bats will a guy like that go through in a year?
Loaded question, because Mike's a little bit different. Mike's actually one of the easiest guys on the planet to work with. We usually touch base around Thanksgiving and make sure that after 12 years, nothing's changed again. And then we write up all his orders and send them through. So he's always got his bats. A normal player with us, you may be looking at, depending on, now with all the contact stuff, 4 to 8 dozen bats a year, depending on playing time, how good of a hitter they are. And people always kind of look at you funny. It's like, how good of a hitter? They're big leaguers. Well, there's different degrees of hitters, in the big leagues. There's guys that hit 330 and go through 10 dozen bats a year. And then there's guys that hit, 280 and go through a half dozen bats a year. A lot of it depends on the model they use, what type of hitter they are. We don't do bats for Luis Araz, but I would venture a guess he uses very few bats over the course of the year.
Right. How do you guys go about this? Has always been fascinating to me. Like, there's a lot of competition out there, and there's and especially now with all the drip.
Oh yeah.
And all that stuff. So like, how do you guys go against, all right, let's just go back to the beginning when you guys were getting started. How did you even break the mold when Louisville Slugger and pretty much Rawlings dominated everything?
Right. So back then, because we were new and one of the few companies that were out there and now available to the professional player, I'm not going to say it was easy, but it was easier to kind of get your foot in the door and have people try it out. And then you're a former player. If you get hot with it, you stick with it. Now there's 40 plus approved bat companies at the big league level. So
wow,
it's a little muddier now than what it was as far as trying to get in. You brought up Sandlot. For us, from a marketing standpoint, we want to get younger. with it. We want to get our bats in front of the kids even before they have the need to swing wood bats. That's where the drip comes in. You know, on a very basic level, it's the pinks, the blues, the aquas, the teals, trying to marry those colors to make it more attractive on the shelf for kids.
Yeah.
And then if we're able to tell our story about who we are and what we are to players in the big leagues, then we're developing that next wave of wood bat users as they get into high school, college, summer ball, and eventually into pro ball.
So the industry, the game itself is the greatest game on earth, and it's unbelievable. I was amazed at how high school and college are not the same version of baseball. It's not the same game. It's labeled the same, but it's not. And
I would say big league ball is not the same either as when we were playing.
Oh my gosh. So what's been the biggest changes in big league ball in the last 20 years with stuff like that? Because again, I thought when I went from college to pro, it was the lowest level pro there was. It was night and day. It wasn't the same game.
Yeah, it's the old adage, bigger, stronger, faster. Like you're seeing that in real life, right? Like in playing out in real time right now. No matter what sport you're dealing with. I mean, we just had the NFL draft. Like just sit back and read some of the heights and weights and speed, the 60-yard, 40-yard dash time in the NFL. Like these dudes are phenomenal athletes. And I think now what you're seeing at all levels of baseball is the athleticism has taken over the kind of pure baseball player. And when you find those guys that the athleticism marries with the baseball ability or IQ with it, those are the superstars in the making coming up. I am not a proponent of the one sport athlete growing up, but I do think that's had an effect on all sports with it. I think kids are specializing sooner. I think to a degree they're reaching their peak sooner, which is not a good thing. But I think overall that marriage of athleticism and then that sport specific training, the development in that sport married with the athleticism is at an all-time high with it.
I love. I agree with everything you just said, and I love the multi-sport athlete too because the injury to the baseball player always happens when accidentally he moves in a way that is not in fluid with the game. You know what I mean? And
PSA to high school coaches everywhere: let your kids play multiple sports. I don't care if you're a football coach, basketball, and I was a basketball player growing up, and so I get it. The basketball is probably the hardest sport to kind of manage with other sports. It's doable. Yeah. It's completely doable. And to your point, where I think you were going was, you're going to prevent a lot of injuries that way because basketball is a nonlinear sport. Okay, baseball kind of falls in between that, the linear movements and the nonlinear stuff. But the more you can train outside of what your specialty is, the stronger your body's going to be with it. That's why you look at a lot of the professional athletes now that Pilates is so big, yoga, and for a while ballet was huge for a lot of the skill guys in the NFL. There's a reason why all that stuff took off. It's training your body in a way that you don't normally use it, to help insulate it from injuries down the road.
Man, that's good stuff, dude. That is good stuff. So how much, we can all agree on how we view the industry from outside the clubhouse because the MLB network's fantastic, by the way, the coverage they get. But can you give us an inside look of what it's like on the inside of the clubhouse a little bit? You know what I mean? Because you get you're a fly on the wall.
Oh yeah.
And a wall that pretty much, I would say there's millions of people that would die to be a fly on that wall.
Oh, it's one of the reasons I've done this job for so long. When I got through playing in 2002, I told my wife, I said, I wanted to do something that kept me around the game. Didn't have kids at the time. So, coaching youth baseball, I ended up doing, but that really wasn't what I set out to do. I wanted something that kept me around either the pro game or the college game. Super fortunate that the third phone call I got after I decided to retire was from Old Hickory, and never looked back with it. And
I don't even know that story. And by the way, folks, I met Travis at Old Hit After Hit here in Nashville. And I looked up to Travis a lot because he was a few years ahead of me. He just played ball at UT. And where he was a standout player and was going to play pro ball. And I watched your dad and you take BP every night at 9:15 after we'd closed up shop every night. And it's funny, after when it was my turn and I was doing that, I did the exact same thing, and it was because I saw you do it.
Yeah, and I've got my younger son who's going to Carson Newman in the fall to play. That he's me, so it's. I'll come home from work and we'll eat dinner and we'll be sitting there, and all of a sudden he rolls down the hall and he's like, all right, you ready? I'm like, it's 9 o'clock, dude. Ready for what? He's like, I got access to the cage. Let's go hit. I'm like, all right, let's go. So we'll go hit 9 o'clock at night. If they'd let us turn the lights on at Page High School, we'd be out there taking ground balls at 10:30. So it's probably a good thing they don't let us turn the lights on at night.
That's right. That's right.
But no, so I finished up in the Frontier League in 2002. Actually, the last month or so of that season, I dislocated my wrist, so I was pretty banged up at that point, and had made the decision that was going to be it. That I was going to hang them up at the end of that year. We were in Richmond, Indiana for the playoffs. Got eliminated in the championship round. I got done. This was, really didn't have cell phones back then, but called my wife, told her that, hey, I'm coming home. It's over. Called my dad, mom and dad, and told them. And then just happened that I had just gotten an order of bats to finish the season. And I'm like, well, I'm on the phone. I'll call Old Hickory. They're closed. I'll leave a message like, hey, guys, thanks for everything. Hanging them up. Hope to see you soon. And 2 days later, I got a phone call back. It was like, hey, if you're done playing, we'd like you to jump on board. Don't know what we're going to do with you, but I'm like, hey, that'd be great. I got to have wrist surgery. And so I came home, had wrist surgery. That was in end of August, 1st of September. And by the 1st of October, I had a cast on my right hand from the bottom of my fingers up through my elbow. And I was sanding bats with one hand.
Wow.
Trying to figure it out. So that's how I started. John Moyer, one of the founders, John Moyer and Chad Lamberth are the two founders. Chad is the current owner now. John retired 2.5 years ago.
Good for him. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well deserved for him. And so John, sat me down one day and he goes, look, we really don't have, we just sell bats. We don't have like a pro division. So if that's something you're interested in, run with it. See what you can do with it. And so that's kind of been my niche with Old Hickory, is kind of either running it or overseeing the pro side of it, and trying to make that stuff work with our guys and building those relationships.
Hi, folks. I'm your man, Nick Hyder, and I just want to say a quick thank you for all of you, the millions of you tuning into the Hitstreak. If you have not already, subscribe to the Hitstreak on all digital platforms. Share your favorite episodes with your friends, your team, literally whoever needs a lift. We've built a worldwide audience of millions, and we're just getting started. Every episode, we're breaking down the playbook of top performers so that you can get to that next level too. We're literally getting the information from the people that have it to the people that need it by bringing on guests that everybody knows and some that not everybody knows yet. So again, thank you for being a part of this movement. Keep listening, keep sharing, and keep leveling up with the Hitstreak. That was so smart of them to do that, because back then, it may be common practice now, but all the bat, we call them bat reps. The bat reps that they hadn't played before.
Right. Yeah.
We're not at a high level.
And the godfather of all this is a guy named Chuck Shupp. Was with Louisville Slugger for years and years. He's with another bat company now. But I think everybody that does this job that's run across him, we kind of tip our hat, take him out to eat every once in a while and be like, hey, man, thanks for setting this up and paving the way for us, because you were the first guy with clubhouse access. You were the guy that did it right. And you very easily could have screwed this up for everybody. But you didn't. And so now, whether you like it or not, you've opened the door for 40 other bat companies to come in and do the same thing. He probably would hate me saying that, but that's, the long and short of it is that it took a guy like that does have some playing, time in his background to speak the language with the players with it.
I bet it's gotten a little bit of it's probably got to be a little bit of a dirty industry, just because there's always, your competitors always trying to come get the guys you've got on lock.
It's, for me, this is really all I've ever done. So I kind of have blinders on every once in a while when I start talking about this, but I think I've done it for so long, and Old Hickory has such a good brand name to it that, there's a handful of companies out there that if I know that Nick Hyder's your guy, I'm going to say hello. I don't need to talk shop to you.
Sure.
Now, every company may have 2 or 3 of those guys. Everybody else, that's free game with it. And so that's for me, that's where I've always tried to build relationships with guys. And it may be, guys that I've known for 15 years that ordered bats once or twice. At the end of the day, when they retire, all of a sudden they're like, oh, if you need bats, call Travis. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, you wouldn't even call Travis. They're like, no, you were always the guy. You were always the guy that took care of us. If we needed anything, you didn't push too hard, but you didn't stay away too much. And so it's that balancing act with it. There's some used car salesmen out there that be up all up in your grill in the locker room, which is severely frowned upon. But just trying to find that balance of building the relationships and being there when guys need you.
Dude, that's awesome. So, tell me, I should know this, but I don't. Because the cool thing is no matter what, for what year is this? Golly, so for at least at least 25 years, I've always at least shook your hand at least once a year because it was at a golf tournament that you were supporting that we were putting on or something like that, where it was you were always there. We could always depend on old TC to be there, support us, and everything else. But I should know this. It's a question I've always kind of had in the back of my mind because I'll hit you up, hey man, you're like, yeah, I'm out in Arizona at Fall League. I'm over here. I'm over there. Right. Like, what is, my son and I go to Tampa every year for spring training. It's one of our spring traditions. So like, when does, I know you do have to travel, but you're here often, and you coach like folks. He coaches his son's. He's coached his son's baseball team the entire time you did that.
I try not to, but I always get roped back into it. So.
He's always involved in giving back into the community and big on family. Your wife's the real superstar of the family, right?
Absolutely.
Just like mine.
Yep.
But so to walk me through, like, let's just start on January 1 and walk me through, like, you probably have the same trips a lot of times you got to go and so on and so forth. Talk about that.
So we'll back it up a little bit. So usually the first week of December is the winter meetings, Major League Baseball winter meetings. And we have a bat meeting there that we go to. That's a time for us to kind of sit down with agents. There's a clubhouse kind of little trade show, so we get to see all the clubhouse guys. And that's kind of the start of our season with it. So that December 7th, December 8th area. And so we'll get cranking then, go through all the approval process we have to go through every year with Major League Baseball. And then,
I was going to ask that too. Yeah. So like, not every bat can be major. No, you got to be Major League approved.
Yeah, you have to be Major League approved. That started. Well, it's always been around. The new process started about 2009 with what we do, and as far as where we procure our wood from, how we process it, what finishes we're using, all that stuff's recorded now. The ink dot test, which we can talk about that here in a little bit. Who we're supplying to, how many bats we sold the last year. We get all the fun information, like what our breakage rate was at the big league level, where our sales are at the big league level.
They track the breakage rate?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The hitter has nothing to do with that.
Oh, no. They are not shy of telling you who breaks the most bats in the big leagues.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's all in December. When we move into January, then I'll start setting up our spring training stuff. And so I usually handle the big league stuff. My other rep is a guy named Coy Adams, who's fabulous at his job, younger than I am. So he kind of speaks the language of the younger guys a little bit better. So he's my minor league guy right now. That he'll go out. Yeah. I'm almost 50, man. Like, you got 18, 19-year-olds looking at me like I'm crazy. So, we make a really good team as far as handling the big leagues and the minor leagues. And so, but that does put us on the road for about 4 weeks, during spring training. So, I had two boys that one just finished up at Roan State playing. The other one is a senior in high school and going to Carson Newman next year. So I try to balance that schedule out where I can come back and see them. Thank you. Come back and didn't screw them up too much. Come back and see them play as much as possible with it. And so I hit 30 teams in 21 days this spring.
Wow.
With it between Florida and Arizona.
I want, talking about just the kind of guy that you are, you've always been just a few years ahead of me in life altogether, whether it be raising kids. My son plays in the Midland TN family here. That was, obviously because of Lance Wascom, but I was introduced to it with you first,
right?
Prior to that, and but you were involved in that organization. It's an all volunteer nonprofit. Yep. Were you one of the founding?
I was.
Members? Yeah, one of the founding members.
We started as Showcase Baseball. Tanner's 21, so that'd be 13 years ago. That's crazy. With it, and very fortunate that we had a good group of guys with us, and like anything else, families move away, so we lose some guys. And as far as like the core group that sat around and tried to make good decisions for the kids. And then probably 6 years ago, we decided that, hey, this has gotten to the point where it needs to be more than just 4 people sitting around a table drinking beers, talking baseball. And so we started an official board. We were Showtime Baseball at the time. And Midland came on board 4 years ago, reached out to us. The nonprofit side lined up with what they were trying to do and what we wanted to do. It gave us a little name recognition that we didn't have previously. And then plus, there are some kids in the Middle Tennessee area that even at younger ages are good enough to go play at the national level. And so Midland came in with the national teams. And so we actually host one of the national teams now. But we send kids at all age levels to all their national teams to go play in national events. So that was just another kind of piece that we could offer to the kids and their families to kind of, hey, if this is the journey you want to go on, like we talked a little earlier, bigger, stronger, faster, this is available to you now where it wasn't before. And we've grown to 20, I think we're at 21 teams right now and looking to go to 24, 25 next year.
It's awesome. And like literally, it was before the start of, it was at the end of Ethan's 13-year-old season. So last year was 14. So it was at the end of the year, but season before last, I'll never forget it because I wore a piece of my sidewalk out on the phone talking to you because he had just finished his 13U season.
Right.
I'm at a position in life where work's really pulling me over here and there's some big opportunities. I don't want to miss anything, and I'm not going to miss anything, but like if I could be relieved of some responsibility, so do I hire somebody to help? Do I hire a coach? What do I do with the team? And I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know a good resource for information, so I called you.
Yes, you did.
And sure enough, and it's funny because you said, dude, the hardest season is 15. That's the one I'm doing right now.
That for me, that was I don't want to say the worst. That was the toughest. From a kid standpoint, we've all been there. We've all been 15, 16 years old where dad doesn't know what he's talking about anymore. And, I think I may have told you, for me, it got to the point where I wanted him to hear other voices.
Yeah.
If it was something that he truly loved doing and wanted to pursue after high school, I didn't want to be the guy that killed it for him. And so I carried my older one through 15 and stepped away. And I would say within 2 months, I knew it was the best decision I could make because I saw him immediately take off and what he was doing. I actually saw his love for the sport grow like right in front of me with it. And so with my younger one, the plan was to go through 12 at Cooperstown. Unfortunately for him, and he still talks about this, his 12-year-old season was COVID. So he never got to go to Cooperstown. So the trade-off was like, all right, I'll come back at 13, head coach, and then I'll be done with it. Then I'll be done with you as a head coach. We made it through 13. I was done. He came back in and said, no, I want you to coach again. I said, no, I'm not going to be the head coach. Kind of the same way, work's picking up. You got your older brother's in high school. I want to go do all this. And so I agreed to kind of be a de facto assistant coach, like when I could be there. That hasn't changed. So I get roped back in every year with him. If something's if a coach can't be there, he'll volunteer me and then call me and be like, hey, can you be here in an hour? Like you're coaching today. But what it's done for he and I, for our relationship, for my younger one, is because I'm no longer his head coach, like our baseball talks have blown up. And for, if you've been through this before with a kid, like that, those baseball talks turn into life talks with it. So we may be talking about something that happened in a high school game and he's upset about it. And, I look at him like, what are you going to do when you get in the real world, man? Mm-hmm. Like you made an error. Okay. Big deal. Right? If you get into the real world and you've got a real job and you screw something up and you keep thinking about it and pouting about it and you keep screwing it up, then you're in trouble. You screw it up once, get your head up, fix it, and move on. That's how this world operates. So from that standpoint, it's been really, really cool. Like our growth is like our relationships at a great spot. And I can go back to when it's like, no, I'm still around, but I'm not going to be your coach anymore. Right. Is when that really took off with it. In his eyes, at least I think, he doesn't think I'm as dumb as what other people may think, which is really, really cool. Yeah. But it's been good. So, my advice to all dads out there that are coaching is definitely do it because you'll build these core memories, not only for your kid, but for you too. And then just be aware of when the time is right to step away. Yeah, man. It's, like I say, for me, it was, again, you always wonder. One of the coolest things was, I had always been Ethan's coach until he went and played school ball that first year, and he had and his coach in school was fantastic. And I actually, same thing. I watched his love for the game it grow. Our talks changed totally different. They were totally different perspectives, and now it's like. Now it's like I'm can I get his coach to coach his summer team too, type of thing. Like, how could I just want more of that. Like, I want to get him in that situation more. Well, like I said, for me, the big thing is I wanted him to hear other voices. Like, I'm confident in what I know about the game. I'm confident that I can relay it to him or any other kid. But there's multiple ways to skin a cat, as the old saying goes, right? So what I've learned over the years as a coach is that I may tell your son one thing one way. You may come in and tell your son the same thing, but a different way, and he's not going to know what I'm talking about, but he'll understand how you're saying it. That's right. And so I think what makes a really good coach is somebody that understands that kids do learn in different ways, that they need to have that other voice. Even if they are saying the same thing, it may register differently with them. And so for me, being able to step back, let those other voices kind of come in, and then be in a situation where we can sit down and talk about all of it, has really, you know, for him as a late bloomer, a big kid, that was really the difference maker the last couple of years for him in getting him to where he is now and where he's going next year.
Staying on the topic of family, honestly, man, I've been keeping up with you and your wife for so long because, you know, somebody told me, Brad, it was my buddy Brad, he told me, he said, Nick, if you want to get great at anything, just study the people that were great at it before you, right? So I watched you coach. I watched you lead what seemed to be a happy career doing something that you loved. I watched your wife get featured on Top 40 Under 40 and all those things. And I see you guys having date nights and going on vacations, just the two of you guys with friends and family stuff. I saw it all, and I'm like, he's doing it all.
Right.
He's doing it all. And that's hard.
Super hard. I mean, because, you know, the first time you go on a date night when you got little kids, like, you only talk about the kids.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, you know, when our kids were younger, we were very fortunate that my parents were close by and her parents were close by. And so we had built-in babysitters. And I remember my dad saying, it's like, when you go out tonight, don't talk about the kids. And so you're 10 minutes in a dinner just staring at each other. What the hell do we say? Like, our whole life is our kids, right? And so it's kind of this building process that, you know, we talk about relationships in work, relationships in coaching, but, you know, the relationship with your spouse, it takes work as well.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's those baby steps to where, you know, we started off with a date night once a month. Then, you know, the kids' sports activities crept up, and it wasn't quite as you know, common, or it wasn't scheduled the way it should have been. And then you're like, all right, let's get back in this. And then all of a sudden you realize, hey, our kids can drive, you know, so we don't have to take them everywhere. So we can scoot out to an early dinner, or we can take a weekend vacation. But yeah, highly recommend that with your spouse, especially if you have kids that are playing sports, because that will consume your life 100% if you let it.
No doubt, man. No doubt. What's you know, in case you guys didn't know, there's people watching.
Yeah.
And you guys were whether you meant to or not, you great leaders in that, because that we, you know, if anything, it just said, dude, if he can do it, I can do it. You know, it let us know that it was possible, because again, those burdens can get really heavy.
Oh, 100%. And I think I appreciate you saying that. But I think for us, it was, you know, one of those things that, you know, and our kids have primarily been baseball players. They played all kinds of sports, but that was what they've always gravitated to. And so we kept finding ourselves, you know, hanging out with baseball families at baseball fields. And so I couldn't tell you when it was, but it was like, it was a conscious effort to go, hey, let's take these group of people that we're with a lot and we really, really enjoy being around, and move it away from the baseball field and see what happens. You know, whether it's a date night or a dinner, or you just meet at a bar for drinks after work. And so that's where our core group of friends kind of started and have kind of come through. You're never going to get away from the kid conversation, right? And so the more commonalities you have, the more that those relationships grow. And that's been kind of, you know, our big things, you know, the Roses, the Overstreets, you know, whoever, those are the people that, you know, our kids have come through this. Most of them are in college now. Some of them are graduating college now. It makes you feel really old, but just kind of being on that life journey with them that all started from this commonality has been really cool.
Man, that's crazy, dude. That's crazy. I wanted to touch a little bit on, so you played baseball at UT, and growing up in the 90s, to get to play at UT or Vandy, that was the mecca. That was like getting to the big leagues,
right?
You know, because so few people did it, and back then it was so hard to get noticed on the national level because you didn't have social, you didn't have internet,
and there was no travel teams.
That's right.
Yeah, we played in our local leagues, and you know, you went to baseball camp. That's how you got seen.
Well, I remember when, you know, when I met you and they're like, yeah, Travis played at UT. It was like, holy cow. Because so who are some of the guys you played with at UT?
So I was there 95 through 98. 95 was the World Series team. So Todd Helton, R.A. Dickey, they were on that team. Later in my career there, Augie Ojeda, who had 8 or 10 years in the big leagues. Luke Hudson pitched with the Reds. Been very fortunate to play with a lot of good guys.
Yeah, dude, it was awesome, and that was when, you know, you got to witness firsthand all the stuff when RA was going through all that stuff with him and all that kind of stuff. But again, to play it at the University of Tennessee was huge. It was. So I'm from Virginia originally, and
we moved to Tennessee when I was probably 11. And I graduated high school from Saudi Daisy, right outside Chattanooga. So little small town. Being from Virginia, college sports weren't what they were then here. It's nowhere close to what it is now. I remember the first fall we were here, my dad took me to a Tennessee football game. They played UTEP. I don't think UTEP exists anymore. Sat in the upper deck, and all I wanted to do is when the game was over is go to the baseball field.
Yeah.
And so we walked out of Neyland Stadium, down around Thompson Bowling, over the baseball field. And I'm 11, 12 years old. And I'm like, all right, this is my first introduction into what big time college athletics look like. And so back then you didn't have the recruiting services, the perfect games of the world. You just signed up and played, and you made your all-star team, and you just went to see how far you could go. So I got really big into baseball camps. And so we would spend probably 2 or 3 weeks summer. Always thought I wanted to go to Georgia Tech because they had an overnight camp that I went to every year. Started going to some Tennessee camps and legitimately was recruited out of camp there. And I don't know 100% if they ever saw me play in a real game until after my sophomore year when I showed up at camp.
Wow. Dude, that's cool. Tennessee baseball has had quite the resurgence as a national powerhouse. Tony B's doing a hell of a job, ain't he?
Dude, that guy's, he's got it going right now. So
do you
not counting last weekend? That was a rough weekend, but
they were. I mean, I was wondering if they. Now I know they're human at least.
Oh yeah. It's and people always, we were there. We've gone through this, right? And so nobody's ever won. Very few teams have ever gone undefeated in baseball. I don't know anybody's ever done it in college, for sure in pro ball, right? That's the nature of the beast. It's a game of failure. So knowing Tony, the little that I do know him, he's upset they lost, but he's not super upset about it because now he's got their attention.
That's right.
It's like, hey guys, you won it all last year, right? Like everybody's coming after you with everything they got. And sometimes as a young kid, it's got to smack you in the face before you realize that.
Man, what was it? What was it like? Ra's done a great job of telling his story and getting, and you can hear a lot about him. You don't hear much from Helton, though. I know, with the Hall of Fame, was it last year that he got put in last year? Because I know he's a two-sport guy, right? So what was it like those guys as teammates, players, like? How much did you feed off that?
Yeah, both of those guys were great teammates in different ways. RA was probably the ultimate competitor on the mound and really kind of super quiet behind the scenes. Todd was always, he's more of the prankster with it, and it was, you learn different things from different people. But one of the things I learned from Helton, my freshman year, I'm kid from Saudi Daisy. They end up sticking me in the lineup behind him. We're both left-handed hitters, and I'm like, all right, here we go. Like, teach me. I'm your clay. Mold me. Like, help me figure this out.
Yeah.
And so we get into the regular season. It's probably the second week of the season, and Todd was never one of those guys that he didn't show up super early to do extra work. He didn't show up stay late to do anything. He was very regimented on doing the work that needed to be done at the time. Right, and so he was really the first guy that I learned, if you go hit 200 balls off a tee, that's great. Because the last 150 of them sucked. Right? And all you did was break down what you accomplished in the first 50 swings. So why not just come in and take 25, 50 perfect swings and be done with it? Right? And so that was one of the first lessons I learned from him. And then I'd start watching and notice, every once in a while, this guy just goes out by himself. And we had a batting cage out behind center field, and the old Iron Mike machine. And he's, carrying 2 buckets of baseballs out there by himself. So I'm, poking around, and he's out there one day, and it's just like, as hard as he can swing, there's no thought to mechanics or going the other way or, doing anything. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, every once in a while, you just get to a point where the mind starts, gets cloudy and it starts messing up. He didn't say messing up, but it starts messing up what you're trying to accomplish at the plate. Sometimes you just got to clean it out. He goes, so I load this machine up, turn it on, and I swing as hard as I can for as long as I can, and then I walk away.
Are you ready to take your brand digital? At HitLab Creative, we don't just make content. We build your digital foundation from the ground up. So whether you're launching a podcast, creating scroll-stopping social media content, or building a website that actually converts, we connect all the dots. podcast production, CRM systems, content strategy, data analytics, branding, it's all under one roof. Because in today's world, content without strategy, it's just noise. And you're here to make an impact. So if you're ready to launch smarter, grow faster, and create with a purpose, it's time to team up with the Hit Lab. Visit hitlabstudio.com/studio-time and let's build something that lasts. Because the Hit Lab is where digital strategy meets data-driven content creation. There's such a great message there because that's literally fact in all life, business and everything that happens.
I use it with Tyson, my younger one, all the time. My older one was a pitcher, so pitching's really hard to hit. That was my advice to him. So with the younger one, it's like, hey, like we do all this work, you do all this work. You know, I'm the guy throwing BP and offering advice. I said, but I know you well enough where I can see every once in a while you're getting information here, and everything's crossing over, and the brain's moving faster than the body. Okay, just let's go. I'll throw, or we'll set the machine up, or you can go with your boys and do it. Don't think about mechanics. Don't worry about the outcome. Just go swing as hard as you possibly can.
I'm doing that with my son this afternoon.
Just go, let it rip. I tell people all the time. It's like, you know, looking back, you know, because I've coached every age group from 4 through 18. So what would I do differently? I would go back to the really young kids and screw mechanics, screw where you're holding your bat. Can you go pick up a bat and swing as hard as you can and hit this baseball? I don't care what it looks like.
Hunter Bledsoe said the same thing.
So there was Eugene at 108 Performance had a little clip the other day. He's like, you give a kid starting off baseball a big wiffle ball bat and put a beach ball on the ground, tell him I'll give him $100 if he pops it. He goes, watch everything start to sync up. Wow. You're not teaching mechanics. You're just letting him go learn. Okay? You've got to fail to succeed, whether it's in baseball, business, wherever. That's kind of the mentality with it. You know, and I think a lot of times now, especially with the specialization in sports, you know, we're worried about, you know, in baseball, is your stance open? Is your weight back? Like, are you flying off the ball? Like, all this stuff. Just go hit the ball. Just go swing hard. Yeah. Because, I mean, I see a bunch of kids in high school, because that's where my world is right now. It's like I see a bunch of kids in high school have really good-looking swings. They're just not they're not violent enough with it because they're too worried about step A, step B, step C.
Love it.
You know, instead of just getting up there and hammering.
That is so good. That is so good. All right. Getting back to some Old Hickory stuff here, right? So how do pro guys choose their bat company? Like, how does that work out? Is it more because again, I'm assuming you guys, you know, have access to most of the same tools. I'm sure that some companies are always trying to do some things innovative and lead and whatnot. And, you know, iPhone's great for one thing, and Android has strengths in another, and so on and so forth. But like, is it really just the relationships with the people? That's
a big part of it. You know, as a former baseball player yourself, we all may not be superstitious, but we're all a little stitious. And so I think with, you know, for us getting in front of the younger kids, so that brand recognition is there, that if they do get the chance to play pro ball, like your first year in pro ball, like there's going to be a lot of people coming at you, right? And not in a bad way, but you know, you have your choice of bat companies to work with. Our hope is that when in year one, that we're one of those bat companies you decide to work with, and that you get really, really hot with us, and that makes it harder for you to put us down.
That's right.
With it. And then that's when the relationship kicks in. Are we doing our job, working with you, getting you the proper tool for what you need?
Is there? I should know this. I don't. Like I remember, I don't remember who it was, but somebody used Aaron Judge's bat last year and something. They were like, what was it like hitting with that? They're like, it was big and heavy, you know, like that was the thing. There's a clip of A-Rod that went viral again the last couple of years where he borrowed somebody else's bat. I think it was King Griffey Jr.'s hit a bomb with it. So
that was actually Rafael Palmeiro's bat when he was in Texas, and it was an Old Hickory.
Got it. There you go. So all right, so that's cool because I would just use that example. So you guys are. You see A-Rod on TV, and all of a sudden he's got an Old Hickory in hand, and you're like, yes!
Oh, yeah. We definitely watch baseball differently than almost anybody on the planet. You know, and it's hard because I'm a huge baseball fan. I love baseball. But if I have a guy like, you know, that orders bats, and I know he got them today. Like I checked, like UPS dropped him off before the game, so he's got him. And I'm watching that game, and all of a sudden it's not us. I'm like, oh, man. Like, all right, what's on the cooking channel? You know? so it makes it hard sometimes. But at the end of the day, it's those relationships. There's a lot of luck involved with it, and then you obviously have to make a good product with it, and you have to stand behind your product with it.
Is there once you guys have a player that's swinging your bats? Are they exclusive? Is there how's that work?
There is some exclusivity. There is some contractual stuff that goes on behind the scenes. By and large, most guys are not. They want the freedom to it's never them. It's always the bat when something doesn't work. So and as a player, I understand that with it. The guys like the Mike Trouts, the Matt Olsons, who else would be a good one? Michael Harris down in Atlanta. The guys that if they're hitting 330, we know it's our bat. If they're hitting 230, we still know it's our bat.
Yeah.
If they're hitting 130, we unfortunately still know it's our bat. But those guys, that's not the norm. You'll see a lot of guys that they're tinkering around in season with different bats. Rafael Furcal, who's playing Atlanta with the Dodgers. The story with him is we did bats for him, but he would always try to steal the bat of the guy that hit the home run in front of him. And so the Braves had to put a bat boy in front of the bat rack because Chipper Jones used a 35-inch, 33-ounce bat. And Furcal was this 33, 31, and Chipper hits a home run, and Furcal would walk over and grab one of his bats. And they said he's literally bumping it up the dugout steps trying to get on deck with it. And so they had to stop, like, hey man, let's be a little realistic with it. But that's the way most players are with it. Minor league baseball, while the money's gotten better, it's still not great. So the expectation level of a minor league guy swinging one brand exclusively, unless that brand is what the team is buying for their guys, that's a really hard expectation level for those guys.
That makes sense. That makes sense. You mentioned earlier the ink dot test.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
All right. So the ink dot test came along in 2009. And for all the baseball buffs out there, 2007, 2008 was really when the Barry Bonds effect took full impact. So Barry was the first guy to swing maple bat exclusively. Yeah. Hits all his home runs. Then everybody's got to have maple. We were basically making maple bats, from procuring the wood, cutting the wood, the same way we were ash bats. And there was a company, and I forget the company's name, that came in 2006, 2007, said, hey, we're all doing this wrong. Maple doesn't grow the same way as ash, and therefore you can't treat it the same way. 7 and 8, there were some injuries with broken bats where they call them multi-piece failures, where basically guys would break a bat and it would saw off right above their hands, and you get this big helicopter piece of wood flying out through the infield. Tyler Colvin was with the Cubs in 2008, I believe, when he actually got stuck in the chest with a broken bat, taking his lead at third base. So it wasn't like he was up on the hitter. He's a solid 80 feet away probably. And that was when Major League Baseball stepped in and said, hey, we're going to research this. We're going to take a look at what's out there to help make these bats better. So starting in 2009, they restricted the density. So basically the weight of wood that we can use, and that eliminated some models for most of the players. They did grandfather in the guys that were already in the big leagues. But immediately we saw broken bats go down. They came in right about that same time and said, hey, we're taking an ash bat and we're branding it on, the face grain. So we're hitting radial grains. What we're seeing is that we actually need to rotate that bat 90 degrees in maple and birch, because maple doesn't break along those long radial grains, breaks along these little fine tangential grains. And so when we did that, we went from, in a year, almost 5 multi-piece failures a game to under 1.
Wow.
With it. So what the ink dot does is those little tangential grains that you really can't see with the naked eye, you drop a little bit of ink on it and it bleeds through it. And then Major League Baseball has this little handy dandy measuring device that we put on every bat, and we gauge the slope of grain with it. And then for pro bats, that slope of grain is recorded and turned into Major League Baseball. So if there's ever a question about a bat breaking, you'll still see bats come apart, right? Guys are throwing 100 miles an hour and you're trying to hit it off your thumbs. That bat's not going to last.
With a 5-ounce rock.
Right. And then what they're doing then is they'll go take that bat. They collect all the broken. They have 2 collection periods a year. They actually review video-wise every broken bat in every game. But during the collection periods, they'll actually grab those bats that break. They'll come in, they'll measure the ink dot with it. They'll take all the measurements as far as length and weight to make sure everything's good. And then that's where they get their data for the final report that we get in the 1st of December in the winter meetings.
Wow. And I just thought of something too, because there's a lot of customization going on for bats based on swing. We're talking about torpedo bats and whatnot, right? And then literally, like as you're sitting there talking just a minute ago, I'm like, ain't nobody hating on any golfer going to get fitted for clubs today.
So that's actually where this comes from. Is the golf world with it. Yeah, that's been coming for a few years with it. I think the big thing that as an industry we always struggled with trying to marry golf with baseball is that golf you're hitting a ball that's sitting still, and baseball you're hitting one that's got 18 inches of vertical drop to it. They're a little bit different with it there. And so the focus with the torpedo bats has really been, instead of changing you as a hitter, can we help manipulate the tool that you're using to better maximize what you're doing at the plate?
Just like that. I mean, literally just like they do in golf when you go get fitted and all that kind of stuff.
We use a lot of the same scales, a lot of the same technology. We can even get into balance points and, the percussion index and perceived sweet spots and all this stuff. And we have the tools that measure all that. And so when a guy comes in that, where the torpedo bat we think is going to go is like, it's not just a generic barrel that's being put on a handle. It's like, we're going to take all this information and you come to me and be like, hey man, the NH1 is my model. So whatever you do, make it feel like the NH1. I don't care what it looks like, but make it feel like the NH1. So we have the ability to take your model pre-manipulation and measure these certain points. So as we're building out the new one, we can make those points match as much as possible. So when you pick it up, it feels the exact same, even though you're now benefiting from the data input with it.
So in the game today, it wasn't that long ago. It was like, black, white, or, you might match your cleats to the color of your stirrups or your sleeves or whatever. And, batting gloves would come in of 4 or 5 colors. I remember when A-Rod, I think, was the first time I ever saw an MLB hitter with a white painted bat. So all mine were painted white back in the day. I thought, God, that looks
Can't
clean.
do that anymore.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, can't do white anymore.
Wow, but you can do a pencil.
Yeah.
You can paint it like a pencil.
Yeah. So technically we get 4 days a year that we get to play around with the bats.
Okay.
Mother's Day is all pink. Father's Day is a new one this year. You'll see a lot of it's going to be more of a Carolina blue this year, but the blue bats. And then we have the Home Run Derby and Players Weekend. And even then, no white, because that supposedly interferes with the umpire's ability to see the ball coming off the bat. But
so the umpires ruin that too?
Yeah. Damn umpires. But so no, they do give us some freedom around there. We'll do a lot of that stuff in-house. There's also a really good local artist, IKB Customs, shout out Keenan, that does a lot of our bats for us. The stuff that as non-artists, and him being an artist, that he really, really saves our rear end a lot on those.
Dude, because the customization of stuff is insane.
Big time.
Yeah, dude.
Big time.
I saw on, I guess it was Facebook the other day, moms are now taking their kids' Jordan cleats and like dripping them out is what I think the term my son used.
Jeremy's going to kill me, but Jeremy Guthrie, who was a pitcher in the big leagues for 10 years, he has a company now that you can send him your dunk clothes and he will cut in and mold spikes, molded cleats, golf soles to them. So you're basically playing in your tennis shoes now.
Dude, so in my second to last year of minor league baseball, I remember there was a dude that had come back from the big leagues, and I never forget it because it was in Fargo. And he was wearing tennis shoes with cleats on them, and I was like, "What the hell, man?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Yeah, dude. There's a company that will basically cut the bottoms out and insert cleat soles." And I was like, "That's the coolest thing I've ever seen." And you didn't really hear much about it. Now it seems like everybody's
doing it. Yeah. Well, not only that, but now like especially on the shoe side, because the sneaker stuff is so hot, like they're just custom making these things for them. And then a guy like IKB comes in that works with NFL teams. I'm pretty sure he does some hockey stuff on the helmet side, but these guys, like that's a big niche for them. Like, we do a bunch with Michael Harris, and Mike and Keenan at IKB are really tight. And so I'll get a phone call from him. I was like, I need 3 bats. Mike's doing something special for, Jackie Robinson Day. He's signing bats or whatever. We've got one Jung Hoo Lee with the Giants. They're doing a Korean Heritage Night in May. And so they reached out about doing just a commemorative bat for him. It's going to be sweet. It's, basically the Korean flag. They sent us the engraving. We're going to engrave it in Korean for him.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, IKB's got that one now, working on that one for us.
That's awesome. Well, shout out to IKB Customs, man. All right, so going back to the so you can't use white bats. What else? Like, what can you do? Because it seems like there's just so much variety. I guess I'm distracted by the elbow guards and the wrist guards and the shoes and
so for us, we are restricted the most color wise of all the equipment manufacturers. Not us, Old Hickory, but the bat industry. So basically, it's got to be the natural wood color, a version of black, gray, or brown. Those are the 4 colors that are allowed.
Wow.
With Major League Baseball. Now, there's the gray area is, most brown has some sort of red in it. So how much red in that brown is too much red. Basically, what we tell our players is if it can be called a team color, blue, green, yellow, it's out. We can't use it. For a while, we were able to do BP bats in different colors. We still can. It's kind of a weird phase there because guys were trying to take them into games with them.
Oh yeah.
Harper the other night had the blue bat, the baby reveal. By rules, that's a no. That was not us, so we'll see what's said next year at the winter meetings about blue bats. Yeah,
I was about to. Yeah. So like they did a gender reveal. It wasn't on Players Weekend. So like. If I wanted to walk out there with a white bat, so the umpire, is it just like in Little League when the umpire's going to walk, they check all the equipment?
Yeah. So technically the umpires have the authority to throw those bats out with it. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. The people we've talked to is the umpires really don't want to deal with it. And so it falls back on us as the manufacturers really to tell guys what they can and can't do. And
I guess it's the same with gloves too. Cause like, their gloves are, just the glove wall at Lim's place looks like an ice cream store.
Yeah.
And which is great. It's awesome. But I know nobody said it yet, but Ethan's gloves 2-tone. There's 2 colors in it.
This is the dumbest rule ever, by the way.
I agree.
I mean, it's if you're a hitter and you're focusing on the pitcher's glove, you got bigger issues than what he's wearing.
I agree with that so much.
High school season, we see gloves get thrown out every day because there's a little bit of white on it. Well, I mean, let's be honest. Like every glove manufacturer in the world has white on their logo. So technically, you'd throw every glove out if you want to. And so it's an umpire discretion thing. And quite frankly, it's a financial thing with the families because now you're saying, I just spent $300 on this glove and my kid can't use it. Like, yeah, come on. There's let's firm up the strike zone a little bit before we worry about what kind of glove kids throwing.
I've been carrying around a solid colored glove in the truck. This whole time, just in case he's standing out of the mound, and it would be a coach that probably called attention to it.
Yeah, our high school has the same thing. They have somebody's solid black glove that's the backup right-handed pitching glove. If anybody's ever said anything to them,
that's crazy, dude. That's crazy. The Hitstreak is powered by Team Hyder. Team Hyder has been serving you for 11 years and has racked up over 20 national and local awards for excellence in all areas. When it comes to finding the right health plan, we need to consider your family's needs and your family's budget. That's what we do to serve you. To look further and to book an appointment, visit teamhyder.com. All right, folks, we're hanging out with Travis Copley, the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Old Hickory Bat Company. OldHickoryBats.com is the website. Check them out on Instagram at Old Hickory Bat. And if you want to reach out to Travis for anything, it's Copley at OldHickoryBats.com. Travis, as we get to the end of this sucker right here, is there any, what did we leave out? Did we cover everything? Is there any final thoughts you got? This is selfishly for me, this has been a cool episode because there's a lot of questions I've always had.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, I'm game for talking about anything. So love talking baseball, love being here. And I think we've covered a bunch of stuff.
Well, give me the coolest story doing what you do. There's got to be one day or one thing that just kind of stands out amongst the rest. What would something like that be? You didn't know I was going to ask you this, so I'm going to give you a second.
But I think one of the stories that sticks out to me is Mike Trout with the Angels. And so when he was 16, we were doing, as a company, we were going down doing perfect game events in Atlanta. And one of my best friends at the time was a scout with the Padres. And so if you've ever been in Atlanta in July, it's hot and humid and you can't escape it. And so we've got this trailer set up. We've got a tent there. And there's this lady from New Jersey that would call and order bats for her kid. And this is back when we were smaller. And, I'd answer the phone, and Debbie was always super sweet. Like, she was awesome. And her question was, she's like, hey, we got to be in Atlanta in 2 weeks. Like, we have the bats in Jersey. And I'm like, hey, you know what? In 2 weeks, I'll be there. I said, why don't I just throw them in the trailer? You can have your son come get him. She's like, perfect. We set it all up. Knew what day he was coming. And so I'm sitting there with my buddy who's a scout, and he hits me, and we're just talking, and he hits me, and he's like, hey, he goes, you need to grab this kid coming over. I'm looking. I'm like, well, there's 1,000 kids here, bro. Like, who are we talking about? He's like, the one walking right to us. Mm-hmm. So here comes this shorter, stocky kid. It's not bad stocky, just, kind of built like a linebacker, like a short linebacker. And he walks over and he goes, hi, I'm Mike. I'm here to pick up bats. I'm like, oh, hey, man, I got your bats. Your mom, called an order. So I grab them, and, we sit there and talk a little bit. Awesome guy, right? Thanks us. And he walks off, and I turn, my buddy's just staring at me. He goes, you have no idea who that is, do you? I'm like, yeah, it's Mike from Jersey. Uh-huh. He goes, dude, that's Mike Trout, first rounder. And I'm like, who?
Yeah.
He's like, bro, he goes, you need to go figure out who these guys are. He goes, because that's going to be an all-star in 5 years.
Wow.
With it. And so Mike and I had this, we built a pretty good relationship, and I was telling him the story. This was probably 2015 or 16, and I'd gone out to Anaheim. He was doing some stuff with the Boys and Girls Club out there, and in another company, and so we'd done some bats for it, and he wanted me to come out, so fly out there, and so he was like, hey, tell the story about the first time we met. So I'm telling the story, right? And so he's got all these kids around, and like we're kind of laughing about it, and so he goes out on the field, and it's just like this. Like a production setup, right? He's going to take a few swings. He's going to talk to the kids, whatever. So he takes probably 4 or 5 swings, and we're standing out there, and he's like, all right, who's got questions? And somebody's like, oh, what's your favorite color? All this stuff. And this kid goes, how come you didn't hit a home run? Mike looks at me. He's like, well, I didn't know you wanted me to hit a home run. And the kid's like, yeah, we wanted to hit you a home run. He goes, all right, where do you want me to hit it? They're like, the rocks. And if you're familiar with Anaheim, they got the rocks out there. So Mike's like, all right. So he's got the pitching coaches out there, the guy throwing BP, and he's like, all right, let's do it. First pitch, bang, in the rocks. Turns around and goes, where you want this one? The kid's like, over there. And he's like, all right, you go, bang, other way, home run. And so we're sitting there, and he does this like 4 or 5 straight pitches, just calling a shot with it. Uh-huh. And he just walks over, and I'm like, dude, like, you're on a different level, man. Yeah. I was like, remember that story I was telling you about? You're going to be an all-star like one day? I was like, that guy was absolutely right.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah. He goes, that guy had a peg. With it. But just like, stuff like that where like, it's 16, I get to meet the kid, kind of watch him grow up, be a very small part of what he's doing is really, really cool.
Yeah.
And then, for him, he took a really bad rap from Major League Baseball about not being personable enough, that's just not his personality, right? Mm-hmm. You're pinning that on the wrong guy. That guy does more for baseball behind the scenes and in his own unique way with the kids that he works with. Like, that guy's great for Major League Baseball. And to have that opportunity to be there and see that firsthand was really, really cool. And that's kind of long story there, but that's kind of my favorite, especially Mike Trout story, but kind of, and I've had some cool interactions with players, but that one was really, really cool.
Absolutely. And one thing just popped up as you're telling that story. I alluded to how, my family is just kind of like, you're one of the families that we watch just to, right. So that we know that it's possible. Like, it helps. Right. Somebody's walked those steps already. And, one of the things that, when you remember me when we were doing the hospitality stuff at the nightclubs and the bars, which was a great time. It was hard to personally develop in that atmosphere because of the proximity of all the people we were surrounded by,
right.
And nothing against those people. But, how much, like, part of me is, so I've seen you grow, bro, as a businessman, as a person, just personal development, like into a pillar in the community and literally like the greatest game on earth at the largest scale. You found your spot, dude. And that's the coolest thing, because I didn't find a spot and I would have loved to have done that.
Right.
But now you're getting to hang around, like, you just mentioned having conversations with Mike Trout. How important is that to you? This is for all the young players, or just people out there. How important is the people that you surround yourself with on a daily basis?
Huge. And it's, I can sit here, I'm very, very blessed in what I do. And so I get to hang out and go to, and now I'm getting older, get to go to retirement parties for guys. But what I've learned is that, like, the guys that are the best at what they do, maybe not just baseball, but best at what they do, they have a very tight group of people that they confide in. And I am, but by no means am I saying I'm one of those people for the guys we work with. I do have some really, really close friends, throughout baseball, but like that inner circle, Like they're very, very careful about who gets in that inner circle with it. And I think, especially for young kids coming up, as parents, we always like, hey man, be careful who you're hanging out with, one bad apple, all this. But you look at Major League Baseball players, successful Major League Baseball players, any sport, any athlete, business leaders, CEOs, entrepreneurs, whatever, their social circle, their inner circle is super, super tight. But then you look at their ability to relate to everyone else outside that. And I think a lot of times that's what separates good from great with it is you keep your inner circle tight. They're your closest confidants. They know all your secrets. They know all your goals, all your dreams, all your ambitions. That next group and that group outside, that's the relationship building part. That's the one where, you tell your kids, like, in baseball, like, you play for the name on the front of your jersey, but you also represent the name on the back of your jersey, right? And so I think the people that are uber successful in life have a good understanding of that. Like, we're going to keep that inner circle tight. Those are the people that know everything about me. And then I'm going to, kind of project who I am and who I want to be, building these relationships with it.
Wow.
Talk to, successful salespeople. It's all about relationships. And it's, by no means are those people becoming the inner circle, right? But you're not, so veiled off from them that they feel like there's no connection there.
Man, that's good. You've at some point in time in your career, I would hope that because you've spent so much time with those top level people, that you'll look back and say, man, there's probably at least 3 books in there about stuff that you learned from those folks along the way. And, because like once I get around certain folks, I'm like, man, when I was a player, I didn't realize it was a business, one, and I was just happy to be there. Right. So like, I didn't understand a lot about it.
Right.
And what I've learned from other folks, whether I, paid to be in the room with them or was fortunate enough to be in the room with, which is the real reason I started the podcast in the first place, was to get in the room with some people that I didn't have a reason to get in the room with.
Right.
And, so at some point in time, it's like, you're going to look back and, all those hours that turned into days with the Mike Trouts of the world and everybody else, but dealing with the executives in one of the largest organizations of Major League Baseball in the world, and compliance and standards and the legal and managing relationships with the Mike Trout and all those people. Dude, that's a college education right there. The best college education.
It's real life education. Yeah. Right. And it's, my older son is, played 2 years junior college ball and was a great student. Just school wasn't his thing. Right. Yeah. And so it's like, all right, what do you want to do? Like, I've been around you for 21 years now. Like, what's your passion? And it doesn't have to be your passion for the rest of your life. Yeah. But what are you passionate about right now that's going to allow you to make a living, put a roof over your head, take care of your family when you get to that point? And he's like, Dad, I want to go build things. All right, let's go look at building things. Like, what does that mean? Like, this whole thing. So through this process, he's a welder now, and that's the kid cool. Absolutely loves it. Right. And never on, as a dad, it was never on my radar that he would be doing something like that. And I'm like, all right, okay, welding, great. Then you start talking to people that I have connections with that are in, home building, they're, commercial real estate, construction. It's like, holy cow, dude, he's a welder? Like, give me his number. Mm-hmm. Like, for what? It's like, we can't find him. Like, we can't hire him. We can't find him. We can't get him to show up on jobs. If your kid can do this, like, he's set. He can call his shot whatever he wants. And I went back home and I went, hey, man, great job.
That was kind of where I wanted to kind of bring it home. What's going on with the fam? You guys are all off, you're spread apart, yet you're still close together.
Yeah, it's so Tanner is my oldest son. He's our welder. He's doing great.
How old is he now?
He's 21.
Holy cow!
Yeah, so he's got a little short-term life plan here. Waiting for his high school buddies to finish up their 4-year schools, and he's back home, just loving life, making money, saving a bunch of money. Good for him. My younger son Tyson is a senior at Page High School, committed to Carson Newman to go play in the fall. So
that's big, dude.
Yeah, he'll continue that journey. And then I guess at that point, Chris and I are empty nesters. So
what are y'all going to do?
We're not real sure. We've got some really good ideas, but I'm not sure how many of them will come to fruition.
Oh, where's the first trip y'all are going on?
A beach. It's going to be a beach someplace. Yeah. That's she loves the sun way too much, that first trip's going to be tropical.
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure. Well, again, I'll have to. I'm always a few years behind you, so I'll be calling. Except Ethan's 15, but our daughter's only 4, so I got a while.
Yeah, I got 2 boys, so I may not be able to help you out much with the daughter. So,
well, but at least with maybe how we're gonna spend our time, because I don't know. I figured we would just probably follow them around and get on their nerves all the time. But maybe there's more out there.
Call Chris; she'll help you navigate the world of travel volleyball. Good luck with that one.
Oh man. All right. So anybody that we've talked a lot about working with big leaguers, but I mean, I know that you guys do bat tours. My son's been there. You guys have designed bats for my son. Right. He's swinging my old models now, so he's actually he told me today the other day he's got his wood bats for this season. He's like, Dad, I want to go in the off season. I want you to take me to Old Hickory, right. And he was like, and I want to design my own model. Right. I'm like, all right, well, get your checkbook and we'll get ready to rock and roll. He'll drive me there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So who's if folks had questions, we're talking to everybody here, right? So how would they reach out? How do they, if they wanted to place orders? Is there a minimum? How does that work?
No minimums. We work with anybody and everybody. You're kind of talking about, we've talked a lot about the players, but we do a lot with the non-playing side of it too. Folds of Honor here in Tennessee, their Rock and Jock softball thing. We do a bunch of bats for them. Commemorative bats for high schools, colleges, businesses, basically, kind of going back to that relationship stuff. We want to be a one-stop shop for anybody that's in need of a wood baseball bat for whatever the reason is. The easiest way is our website, oldhickorybats.com. If you have any questions, they can reach out to me direct, or our general email is on there, mail@oldhickorybats.com.
That's right. And you guys are in tons of retail stores as well.
We are.
And I know there's one last thing just to make sure all the folks out. So there's different models and price points based on quality of stuff, right? So what are I don't even know what they are. And I used to could tell you all the Old Hickory's different models and based on stuff like that. So what are they now?
Yeah, price points, we go from $75 up to $250 with them. As far as the models go, or the series go, we have what we call a black label, which is like a cage bat, an intro level bat. And then we get into our custom stuff. And we do call like our stock bats Custom Pro. That's just the name that we came up with 20 plus years ago and stuck with. But you have the ability to go on and get a bat in 3 days, or you can go on and build your own bat, and we'll get it to you in 2 to 3 weeks.
That's awesome. I remember when for Ethan's, I guess it was his 12th birthday. That's what he wanted, and so Dad handled all that. He did all of it, and basically, I can't remember what happened. He came over to the house, had him swing a couple things, and then he had a conversation with you, and it was made to look like Spider-Man, and it was. I
remember that bat,
and he got it, and he never broke it. He still has it, believe it or not. It's actually hanging on the wall now. It's way too small.
Right.
But he still got it, and it's got his name on it, and that was as a dad that has a son that plays baseball, getting a bat with your son's name on it is a great gift idea.
Yeah, we just had senior night last night at Page, and that's what we did. All the seniors, the team colors with their name on it, their graduation year, and they loved it. That's the parents love it, the kids love it. Let's be honest, most high school athletes at the end of their senior year, whatever sport they're in, that's it for them.
Yep.
So something like that just to have as a keepsake, put on your wall, take to school with you, hang in your office at work. It means a lot to those guys, and for us, I was fortunate enough that yesterday I was able to be there and help with the presentation of them. And it's cool for me to kind of break out of the office and see that firsthand and kind of see what it means to those guys.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times for us it just becomes another bat we're doing. Yeah. But to see their expression and how they gravitate towards it and their emotions with it's really, really cool.
That's so cool. Hey, pardon this quick interruption, but it's a good one. You're listening to this ad right now, which means someone else could be listening to your ad in this exact spot. That's right. If you've got a business, a brand, a product, a podcast, or even just a message you want people to hear, you should be advertising right here on the Hitstreak. This is the moment, the placement, the audience, and you're already hearing how powerful it is. So don't just listen to ads, run one. Go to nickhyder.com/contact-me or click the link in the show notes to get started. Let's put your brand in the spotlight right where it belongs. Travis, any final thoughts on our episode today?
I mean, we didn't cover NIL, college transfer portal, all that stuff, but I think we got everything else.
So I have let's stay there for a second. I'm in. Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. So first of all, when this episode comes out, the NFL draft will be a little far behind us, right? And I know we're talking mostly baseball today. I heard an interesting theory about the Shedeur Sanders thing.
All right, fire away.
And that was that it was a nobody's watched specifically the third, fourth, or fifth rounds of the draft in the ever, and they did this year.
Yeah.
They did this year.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that.
So, and that makes a lot of sense to me. I understand that maybe there's a thing that the NFL owners blackballed him because they're basically saying like you're too cocky, which I could see that too. However, I see Dion seems to win wherever he goes, and I think his kids are going to be cut from the same mold. I think that's all they know. I think they're good people. You know what I mean? And I kind of gravitate to their confidence a little bit.
Oh, 100%. Like, I love it. I mean, I loved watching him play at Colorado. I mean, it was great. I think for me, and I am not a football guy. I mean, I love watching college football, but I'm not versed and I didn't play football. But man, it sure says a lot about the school you go to, huh?
I guess so. And but an organization like the NFL being as big as they are, first of all, when somebody, I can't remember who I heard it from, they're like, yeah, dude, think about what the NFL did. They basically took an athlete that he made. The draft is, nobody's got, a lot of people won't even remember the first rounders anymore. They'll remember him over that. But more importantly, like the ratings of those later rounds were through the roof when in the past, nobody ever paid attention. Right. I'm like, that's actually really smart.
I don't think the NFL hated it.
No,
I don't think they hated it. But I think, for me, especially as a coach, being around younger athletes, and then you kind of go back through, recent history of especially the NFL draft, is like you look at like elite college quarterbacks that just fell, or didn't get drafted at all, and you go, why is that, right? And I think the NFL specifically is so dialed into the measurables: height, weight, how fast you ran, how far you can throw a football, that do they overlook sometimes, that winner mentality with it? Is that just an add-on that they'd like to have? And I'm, as a volunteer to my core, Tim Tebow is one of the best college quarterbacks I ever saw, right? But he didn't pass the eye test as an NFL quarterback, at least what I know. Yeah. Now, he got a shot, and it kind of proved out that way. And I'm not saying Shedeur's another Tim Tebow, but when you stack him up with the measurables, did he fall short enough measurable-wise? And that's what caused to the slide.
Yeah. It's the NIL world is it's really fascinating, and I think there are going to be maximums or minimums or standards put in place down the road. I think they're going to have to, but like even in the world that I'm in, there's affiliate contracts. I have NIL contracts. You know what I mean?
Right.
NIL has nothing to do with sports. It's name, image, likeness, and technically everybody has NIL.
But you've used the word where I think this ends up, and that's contract. Yeah. I think scholarships go away, and I think the fight right now with the scholarship increase, the roster reductions, all that, it's a waste of time. I think if you want to get this thing straight quick, is that you do away with scholarships and turn it into a contract, and you combine the NIL with the commitment to that school. It's basically the same thing that a head football coach does at a university. If you want to leave early, there's a buyout. Whether you pay it or the next school you're going to pays it. There's incentives with this. If you're a starter and you signed just to make the math work, you've signed $1 million deal at Tennessee, right? If you become the starter, that's another $500,000. If you throw for X amount of yards, there's another $500,000. If you win the national championship, here's $2 million. It's set up the same way as a coach's contract is done. That's
fascinating. That's fascinating.
And in the SEC, the Big Ten, and probably the ACC, the money's there to do that.
Sure, absolutely. What's the what else would us amateurs need to? What else would we be looking into in the NIL? What else is changing out there in the world of sports? I know there's a great company here in town with Derek Crownover and athletes licensing companies doing some big things helping protect those athletes.
I think that's the big thing, is how do you protect these guys? And you're talking about 18, 19-year-olds and younger with it that may not be getting the best advice out there. And I know when this first hit, a couple of years ago, we deal a lot with agents. I was talking to an agent, and their biggest fear was not all of a sudden these players are going to get this money or it's going to bankrupt the system. It's like these guys have never had to track their finances. And a lot of them don't realize that in most states it's taxable. So you transfer from Tennessee to UCLA. Well, Tennessee, you weren't paying state income tax on it.
Yeah.
Now you are, right? So you can't blow through all your money and then you're stuck with a tax bill that you don't have left over because there's nobody coming to your rescue on that one. And I know that was a big fear early on. I'm not a huge fan of the NCAA. The NCAA is very smart to allow advisors with it because I think that got out in front of that. I think that was, in talking to several agents we deal with, that was their big fear. And when the NCAA said, hey, you've got to get advisors involved in this because of the kids, that made a big difference with it.
It's crazy because and I think it's great that that kids can get paid. I think it's going to put a little focus on a teenager that maybe is healthy, on what they're doing and what they're putting out there and how they're handling themselves. Because I know I did some dumb stuff as a teenager.
100%. Yep, we all did.
But it's a lot like, when a poor person wins the lottery, they don't know what to do with it. They usually get taken advantage of, and most, like, you can look over and over and over again, they end up poor again. They end up broke again, and and that's there. It's those athletes when they get that. It's like that when there was the roast of Justin Bieber, and he was like, "What happened? This is what happens when you give a 16-year-old $200 million."
Right, and I hope that we've kind of moved past that because of the advisor role in it. And hopefully because there's such a magnifying glass on it right now that maybe that slows the spending down. They're still kids. And again, I went to Tennessee, on a Saturday afternoon, there's 100,000 people there to watch you play football. They're not there to see the coach. They're not there to see the AD. They put it all together. Don't get me wrong, but we're spending our money to go watch that 18 to 22-year-old play football. Yeah, I played in an era where we didn't get money for that. That's right. And you'd always look around and go, "Damn, that guy's wearing my jersey." I can't even do that. That's a violation, right? But he can go buy it in the store, and hey, selfishly, where's my part of that?
That's right.
He didn't buy that. He bought that because it had my name on the back of it. Right?
Well, the university's definitely got a whole lot of free licensing.
Oh, 100%.
Man,
But that's why for me, you do away with the scholarships.
That's
really
good.
You turn it into a contract.
Dude, that's very interesting. That's very interesting because you're just going away from the sports scholarships, right? Or all of them all together, even like the academic. No,
I think academic. And honestly, I think if you go to a contract model, you can put the academic money back in for most of your athletes at the Division I level. Dude, let's reward guys for being well rounded. If you're a 4.0 and you can run a 4.3 40, you should be able to get something for both of those things.
I agree. So
you can sign a contract to go play football wherever you want, and then you apply like a non-athletic student for whatever scholarship money is available.
So basically you're just you're labeling the money to make sure it goes to where the merit demands it go. At the end of the day,
we're treating it more like the business it is versus trying to cover it up as amateurism and for the rah stuff. That's right.
Well, it's been a thing, I guess, and I guess the money just over the years has just gotten absurd before the NIL became a thing. You look in the 70s and UT was big back then, but it wasn't near the merchandise and the money. And
that's probably the biggest change in all this is the merchandising with it. Because there's a lot of margins in that stuff.
Man,
with it.
Oh yeah, big time.
And that's. Fanatics isn't selling Tennessee gear without giving Tennessee something for it.
That's right. And I do love some Fanatics.
God bless. Man, how smart were those people?
That's right. Dale and I love some Fanatics, don't we, Dale? Dale is Travis. First of all, is there anything else on the NIL stuff? That was fascinating stuff. That was some mic drop moments. You need to make sure
that's my sports fan. Fairly uneducated take on where I think this goes.
Bro, it's pretty solid.
Yeah, just kind of looking at the landscape with it.
The Hitstreak is powered by Rack Financial. When it comes to your credit card merchant processing, Rack Financial is efficient, reliable, and trusted. At the end of the day, when it comes to processing your credit card payments, they make it simple, the way it's supposed to be. Check out Rack Financial. I don't do this very often, but Dale's off camera today. Dale the Superman. So Dale, this is fascinating stuff in here. We've been talking about torpedo bats and big league stuff and everything in between. Did I cover it all? Is there anything that we missed?
pretty good conversation out front before this started.
Yeah. Did we do good?
We did.
We did good. Well, the hell yeah. That's the ultimate stamp of approval.
As long as Dale likes it, we're in good shape.
So I can always tell because Dale has the best mustache this side of the Mississippi.
Amen to that.
And I can always tell by how it's shaped if he's in a good mood or not. It'd be smiling. Right now it's horizontal, so we did good.
We did good.
Awesome. Well, TC, dude, I know it's seriously. I appreciate you getting here. I know you've been on the road running like crazy. This was a big deal for us. I appreciate you.
I enjoyed it. I'm glad we got to do it finally.
Absolutely. So, folks, Travis Copley, the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Old Hickory Bat Company. Check him out, oldhickorybats.com, on social media at Old Hickory Bat. And, folks, if you want to place an order, get some information or everything else, he volunteered. It said, thank you very much. Copley at oldhickorybats.com. And what's the main one?
Mail at MAIL.
Mail at oldhickorybats.com. And that's awesome, man. So if you're going to swing, you got to be dropping hick, baby.
Absolutely.
Got to be dropping hick. So, folks, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of The Hit Streak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.